Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I am talking about Padawan's Pride written by Brian Q. Miller. This is an Audible original which seems to be targeted towards a middle grade audience that came out back in September of 2024. Since it's an Audible original, what that means is that this audio drama is only available on Amazon's Audible platform. If you're not really huge on Audible, that's kind of a downside to just be aware of. For me personally, I'm not really crazy about Audible just because for me, I feel like it's a little pricey, but of course, people are going to define that differently. If Audible books are your main source of reading, then maybe it's a good deal for you. But for me, since it's not my main source of reading, it's a little on the pricey side. So that's kind of something to think about when you're considering if you want to read this audiobook or not is are you willing to pay the price for it? And the length of this is 3 hours and 57 minutes. So just under 4 hours. So it's up to you if you feel like that's a good deal or not. And I do also want to add to that for me, this was not a must read. I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the prequel vibes. I enjoyed what we were doing, but I would not call this a must read. I would call this a fun supplemental story if you want to get some Obi-Wan and young Anakin dynamics, but I don't think that you're going to really be missing any key Star Wars information if you decide to not read this one. To give some more general details about the story, it does take place very shortly after Qui-Gon's death. So we have Obi-Wan and Anakin are still kind of getting the hang of working with each other. We do see a lot of prequel references in here. We see Obi-Wan and Anakin on a mission together. There's even a pod racing scene during this mission, so it does very much have that prequel feel to it. And Anakin's trying to figure out what exactly it means to be a Jedi now. He's recently coming off of a major life change by no longer being with Watto, and he's trying to figure out what does that mean for me? What do I need to prioritize now that I'm a Jedi? And it's something that he does struggle with in this story. And of course, as is usual with Star Wars audiobooks, we do have great narration, great sound effects. The audiobook itself is really well put together. So I would say that even though it's an Audible original, which is a little bit different than what we're used to with Star Wars audiobooks, it still felt very much of that same quality of the presentation of the story itself. So, just to give some very brief highlights of what this story contains, I'm not going to give an entire plot overview just because this is such a short story. But just to kind of give you an idea of some things to expect. We start off with Obi-Wan having a hard time disciplining Anakin, and the two of them are trying to figure out how exactly their dynamic is going to work. There were a lot of aspects of the story that reminded me of the Legends novel Rogue Planet, written by Greg Bear, which, Legend, so technically not canon, but in terms of their dynamic together, them trying to figure each other out, and also the age of Anakin does have that in common with that novel. And since the two of them are in this kind of weird, sort of tense period, the Jedi Council comes up with a mission that which I don't think they came up with it specifically because of the tense period, but it was just kind of like a nice coincidence that, like, oh, these two need to work together better. And also, we have this mission that we need them to go on together. So, hey, this is going to work out and probably help them kind of get on better terms with each other. And the way the mission works is that they really, really need Anakin to do this mission, Anakin specifically, because there is a pod racing element to it. He does have to infiltrate a pod race to try to get information as part of the mission. So that's kind of like an added sort of thing that helps Anakin come to terms with things is they really do need him specifically for this mission. Because leading up to this mission, Anakin's feeling like he can't have any fun. He's frustrated by all the discipline. Sometimes he even wonders if he would have been better off staying with Wata, which of course that's not true. That's just you get the sense that he's just kind of being negative because he's frustrated with the way things are going right now. So the fact that they really need him for this mission, it does seem to help build a little bit of trust there. And a pretty big breakthrough moment for Anakin in this mission is he does have to learn to put the mission before his own glory. This mission is tricky for him because there is a pod racing part and he wants to just win the pod race. But through his experiences that he has on the mission, he does come to the realization of there are things that are more important than winning a pod race. And that's a moment where he recognizes that he's changed, and then also Obi-Wan recognizes that Anakin is capable of being a Jedi. So through this whole situation that they go through together, they do come to a better understanding of each other. We do see that Obi-Wan realizes that there were times that he was being kind of hard on Anakin, and he resolves to try to do better about that. And by the end of this audiobook, Obi-Wan is able to admit to himself that he now recognizes what Qui-Gon saw in Anakin, which, when Obi-Wan first meets Anakin, he kind of doesn't really get what Qui-Gon is talking about. But by the time they get to the end of this mission, Obi-Wan is much more on the same page as, okay, there is something truly special about this kid, and there's a reason that Qui-Gon wanted to see it through. So I did really appreciate this story for the sake of exploring Obi-Wan and Anakin's dynamic together in the very early days of Anakin's training. That's something that we don't really have a ton of in canon, so I appreciated getting to see that. But at the same time, my only issue that I just want to reiterate is it's a pretty short audiobook and it is through Audible, which I view as kind of pricey. So it's up to you if that sounds like a must read for you. I would say if you're like a huge prequel fan and you really want to read everything prequel and especially everything that features Obi-Wan and Anakin, I do feel like this is a great Obi-Wan and Anakin story. So I think if you go into it looking for an exploration of their dynamic in the early days, this does provide that. So it's up to you as to if the cost makes this a must read or not. Let us know in the comments if you've read this one yet, what you thought about it. And thanks so much for watching, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.